Hey everybody, how's it going? So we're going to be ranking every single roller coaster I've been on at Six Flags Great America. This includes defunct rides as well, and also doesn't include the S&S Free Spin, the Mardi Gras Looper thing, as well as Max Force, as I haven't been on those three. Moved away and stopped going to the park before those were installed. Okay, so getting into number 16 at the bottom is Little Dipper. Now, being at the bottom of this list does not mean I hate the roller coaster or anything like that. It's just the one that I'm going to be least excited about. And as far as ranking these, we're going to be factoring in ride experience, ride aesthetics, even the wait to ride time, etc., not just the intensity. But with that said, the Little Dipper is a kiddie coaster. But I'm really appreciative of Six Flags. I mean, it was pretty cheap, but I'm really appreciative that they have basically reserved this historical icon, for lack of a better word. I appreciate it, but it is a kiddie coaster and it's not that exciting. But hey, if you're a little one, get on it. It's a piece of history. Number 15, and this is going to be a little bit controversial, but I'm putting the Demon because, in my opinion, it is by far the roughest ride I've ever ridden at Six Flags Great America. It's the only ride in which I ever came off with a headache. Um, so, one credit to the park for keeping the rest of the rides relatively smooth, but the Demon is just too rough. It was the first roller coaster actually in the park I went on, so it has sentimental value for me, of course. I mean, it's a good old classic Arrow Looper with the two corkscrews as well, but oh man, those two corkscrews are rough. So unfortunately, it's going at the bottom, even though it's got pretty cool theming, the black track and everything, and the rock work. It's all cool, but it's just too rough to actually be fun, in my opinion. And so, number 14, going back to kiddie coasters, we have Sprocket Rockets. And yes, I am unironically ranking Sprocket Rockets higher than the Demon. The Demon, in my opinion, is genuinely that painful. It's a pretty simple ride. I mean, a lot of these parks have literally this exact same model of coaster, so it's nothing great, but for a kiddie coaster, it's pretty okay. Number 13, in my opinion, the most overrated ride on the park by far is the Whizzer. I mean, other than the Spiral Lift Hill, which looks pretty cool, I mean, the scenery is kind of nice. The first drop's not too bad, but it is so overhyped. And you're going to get a kiddie, maybe at most like a family coaster for a long ass wait of what's equivalent to far more forceful rides. It's just not worth it. And I'm going to be a little bit petty. I'm salty. We're not sure. There are some rumors that Six Flags was lying and stuff like that. But if the story is true, that they were originally going to tear down the Whizzer and keep Shockwave up for Superman Ultimate Flight, but then switch to the Shockwave, then I'm very upset about that. I'd much rather live in the alternate universe. I know what I just said about the Demon, but I wanted to have Shockwave as a credit of mine, and it makes me really salty that my mom has Shockwave as a coaster credit, but I don't, and I never will get it because it was torn down, and they decided to keep Whizzer instead. Oh, the joy. Number 12 is Raging Cajun. It's a spinning wild mouse coaster. It's not too much to say about these. A lot of parks have them, but it's pretty fun. There wasn't anything notably bad about it. It wasn't rough. It wasn't poor spinny. The track work seemed fine. There weren't any jams anywhere or anything like that. It was fine. A long way in a low ride capacity though for such a simple coaster. At number 11 is the Dark Knight. I agree with some of the criticisms of this roller coaster. It is very copy paste. It's literally just in a box and part of many, many things in that area. I mean, now I think they might have rethemed it to DC Comics or something. I don't know. I haven't been there in a while. But just more of ruining the sort of vibe of the area. You have this all Mardi Gras themed stuff, and then boom, the Dark Knight and Superman. It's like, that doesn't fit very well. But I will say, for a dark ride, it's fun for a dark ride. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I had to choose, if I'm ignoring all the set dressing that the Dark Knight carries, being an indoor ride and all that, just on like the coaster layout and the speed and forces it has, I genuinely actually like it more than Whizzer and Sprocket Rockets. So, and then you combine that with the theming, and then of course it'll rank higher than the Raging Cajun. Now at number 10, a very infamous coaster, Deja Vu. whenever it did work, which was very rarely, it was great. It was a fun ride, but oh my gosh, the, I I was going to the park when it was up for the entire time that it was up. I started going to the Six Flags parks maybe 2 years at most after they put Deja Vu up, and from then up until they moved it, at least once on average once a week, some weeks more, some weeks less, I would go to the park every single year after that. And I got less than 20 rides total on this. It was down that often. It really it was just a complete catastrophe on a technological level. On a ride level, though, whatever, again, it did work. It was actually pretty fun. I know the suspended boomerang coasters aren't the most hyped thing in the world by some enthusiasts, but honestly, it was really fun whenever it worked. But absolutely no theming whatsoever. So, At number 9, this might be also a little bit controversial. Iron Wolf. I know a lot of people will say similar things. In fact, some people I've heard consider the Iron Wolf rougher than Demon. I just didn't have that experience, and I think it's partially luck because the first rides I got on it, I was just barely within the height range, and it didn't seem to bump my head too much. But my stepdad, who was a little bit above me, complained it was really rough. But the next time I went on it, I went from being shorter than him to taller than him. And again, it was a smooth ride. So maybe if you're in that intermediate height range, it's going to really rough you up. But I remember really loving this coaster. And I'm really sad that not only do we lose it, I mean, for Goliath, I guess it was worth it. I'm still kind of sad that we lost it. I'm even sadder that they decided to change its theming when they moved it and changed the glorious colors that it had on its track. I don't know why they did that. And you know what? For a first coaster, B&M, you did really damn well. This is really good for a first coaster. I enjoyed it, and I still miss it. At number 8, also another controversial pick, X-Flight. A lot of people are going to rank this a lot higher. Honestly, it's kind of disappointing. It's a pretty long wait for a pretty short ride, and other than the near miss and the first drop, there's not a whole lot. No, there's actually literally nothing other than those two things now that I think about it that is memorable on the ride at all. It's not that great. I mean, I haven't been on any other coaster model similar, so I'll have to compare it to the others. Maybe I'm just not a fan of that coaster model personally. I don't know, but X-Flight, yeah, didn't really do as much for me as I thought. But I mean, it still ranks above a lot of other rides that I enjoyed. It's not awful. It's just, unless it's a walk-on, I'm not going to ride it. I don't think it's worth any wait time whatsoever, in my opinion. And number 7, and this is as of right now, so this doesn't necessarily include it in its best historical form, because V2, a lot of people miss when it had the brake, the holding brake on the vertical spike. I can't remember. I think there's only 1 or 2 in all of North America that still have that working, unfortunately. But even without that, it's pretty fun. It's smooth. The launch is always great. I wish we had 2 vertical spikes instead of a vertical and a twisty spike, I think. I haven't experienced those, but from what I've been told, and just from my experience enjoying the vertical spike more, I think I would probably like that. But that's what we got. And honestly, it's pretty good. It's even got, decent setting where it's at by the body of water and all that stuff. It's nice. It's nice. Again, it doesn't really fit with the theming of the area. I don't know. It's very oh gosh, I can't remember if that's I think that's Yukon territory. It might be Yankee Harbor. Either way, V2 doesn't fit there. And theme wise, yeah, it doesn't really work. Number 6 is Superman Ultimate Flight. The big complaint I have about this one is the ride to wait time. That's the ultimate thing holding this coaster back from being in my top 5, because it feels smooth. That pretzel loop is so fun. But the rest of the layout isn't, and the first drop is pretty okay too. But the rest of the layout is sort of mediocre, for lack of a better word. But I mean, it's a flying coaster. You're going to be facing towards the ground. It's going to be an intense ride. It's going to be enjoyable. And so that's why it's ranked above so many other rides. But again, it almost always has a pretty long line, and just due to it having sort of slower dispatches with more complex seating and all that sort of stuff, just yeah, I wish it had a better ride to wait time. I wish it was kind of longer like Tatsu or something like that. Maybe if that was the case, I would enjoy it a little bit more. It doesn't even have to be bigger like Tatsu is and more intense. It could just, if it just had more things in its layout, I might think it was worth it and might rank it a little bit higher. At number 5, and for up until I got to the maximum height limit where I was able to ride, the super tall rides, the American number 5 American Eagle was my favorite coaster, but it has dropped down. One, because I've gotten to ride some of those rides, but in addition, it's just unfortunately slowly gone downhill, and we're all kind of wondering what Six Flags is going to do about it. When I first started riding this, it was red versus blue side, and blue side was backwards, red side was forwards, and so I mean, that big of a hill with those speeds on a wooden coaster with forwards and backwards, again dueling, it was awesome. It was a great experience, but then after a couple years, they just stopped doing the backwards. I'm like, okay, well that bumped it down, and at that point, I got rid of the taller rides, and it became my second favorite coaster, and it stayed that way for a long time. But the track is starting to get rough, and you can feel it, and I can even see it in the recent footage from what others have shown me. And then in addition to that, it stopped dueling, and it hasn't dueled in a long time either, and that's another negative. So unfortunately, the two arguably coolest aspects or most unique aspects of American Eagle neither apply. And so I don't know what's going to happen with it. I know there's a lot of opinion. Should they RMC it? Should they just sort of redo the same thing? My only hope, I just hope that one of those two things happens. I really hope Six Flags doesn't just let it stay in this state until it destroys itself so much that it has to be torn down, and like something entirely unrelated, like I don't know, fucking launch coaster or some shit goes in instead. I mean, I'm sure I would enjoy whatever coaster if it's good enough there, but I really, really like the history that American Eagle has for the park, and I very much just like how it visually looks and how it feels. So I really, really would like for them to retrack this, or maybe do like a RMC dueling, sort of a Twisted Colossus situation. That would be okay too, in my opinion. I know people will complain 2 RMCs in the same park, but honestly, if that's your complaint, that's a pretty petty complaint, because 2 RMCs sounds fucking fantastic. Not only that, but they have so many different elements, and their other RMC in the park, which we'll get to, is a relatively short ride. I definitely think that this could be more than unique enough. And even if it isn't, it's going to be bigger, so who cares? It could literally be the exact same elements, just drawn out and a lot longer, and I still think that's worth it. Like, that's still going to be a fun as hell roller coaster, so I wouldn't be complaining. Number 4 is Batman the Ride. Unlike most clones, this one's actually a really damn fun ride. The forces are just so fantastic. It's very snappy going through the whole track. The setting and the Gotham theming through the line is so good. It's cool as hell. Again, doesn't really fit in with the territory, but whatever. The actual line and skew and everything is very well themed. Oh, gosh, it's just the floorless coasters, or not the floorless coasters, the dangling coasters, especially this one. It's just, they're so fun. And I know I have a special place in my heart for this one, being the original and all that, being the one that I've ridden the most. But not only that, but this one, compared to the others that I've had the fortune of riding, this one runs the fastest, in my opinion, at least based on my experience. And it's a fun ride every single time. It can sometimes get a little bit of a wait, but it's a decently long ride, and it's a really good ride. So it's absolutely worth it. At number 3, and this is where people are going to go up in arms because everybody has this at 1 or 2, is Goliath. I'm putting Goliath at number 3. I fucking love RMC. They are my favorite manufacturer in the coaster industry right now, hands down. And Goliath's first drop is fantastic. All of its elements are fantastic. It's a short ride, but it's a really forceful ride. Arguably the most forceful ride in the park, depending on what forces you're measuring. Of course, Max Force has that super crazy launch, but you know what I'm saying. It's really fantastic with the RMC topper track. It's so nice. But let me tell you something. That fucking wait to ride time is killing it. It's just destroying it because it always has the longest line in the park out of all the roller coasters that I've been on. It's the only roller coaster that I've waited in line for over an hour. And oh boy, just it's rough. It's rough having to wait that long for that short of a ride. It really sucks. If it wasn't for that, if this was a walk-on, this would be contending for my number one in the park. But because of that, it's I know it's a petty thing for a lot of people. They're not going to have that be enough of a factor for it to rank down a coaster. But for me, when I'm going to a coaster park, they're like a theme park or anything like that, I'm looking to get as many rides on the fun rides as possible. And so I will sacrifice having a slightly less intense ride if it means I get to ride it 5 times in the time span that I would get to ride the other one. And so that's the only thing holding this thing back. Otherwise, I mean, the restraints are nice. They feel good. The entrance is themed. The rest of the line, I think, could be a little bit more spruced up, in my opinion, but that's sort of a minor complaint. And it's so fast. That drop is so tall. It just looks awesome and terrifying. It's really a fun ride, but it needs to be longer and or have a much shorter wait time, which I know isn't necessarily like the coaster itself's fault, but ultimately when you're experiencing a roller coaster, everything comes into play. The theming, even the weather of the day, all the other aspects I think come into factor, not just the layout and the literal roller coaster's like experience while on the ride. And number 2 is going to be Viper. Viper, out of all roller coasters I've ridden, has the most, like if we were put on a stopwatch, has the most airtime. It just is filled with airtime hills. I don't know what it is with the lap bars, but I always get the most room on this. And it's a very short wait every single time. I've had the line be backed up all the way to like the main area of Southwest Territory. And even then I waited less than 40 minutes. Very quick dispatches, short wait for a longer ride than Goliath, definitely. And it's got great views, fantastic theming, both regularly and during Fright Fest, during the whole lot. It's awesome. I love it. It's great. It's, as far as I'm aware, actually, it's the only roller coaster that Six Flags themselves has built, and I'm very impressed that that is the case. And this thing not only is standing and smooth still, but is this fucking fantastic. It is a great wooden roller coaster. Easily the most underrated in the park. More people should be talking about Viper in their top 4. Like it just hands down. And then number 1, as you all could probably guess by now, since I mentioned that I haven't ridden a Max Force, it's Raging Bull. Raging Bull is number 1. I've only gotten to ride one sort of out and back layout B&M to compare it to. I know people are not as crazy on the Twister layout, and so I don't have a huge sample size to compare it to, but of those two, comparing them, I like the Twister layout more. I genuinely do. I think it's more interesting. I don't think just the airtime hills is that exciting. Eventually it gets boring. And this is a lot more interesting. Only complaint I could have on it is literally like crap for theming. It's the only thing I could give it. Otherwise, decently quick, oh gosh, now I'm tramping on the word. Pretty good load times and dispatch. Not too long of a wait. Really long ride time. Best drop in the park, in my opinion. Going through that tunnel and everything. I sip for tunnels. And it's so smooth. It's the best coaster in the park. I remember 1 year alone, I decided I would count how many times I would ride it, and with still like 2 or 3 months to go left in the season, I'd already ridden it over 100 times. So I've gotten at least, like, throughout the years, over 500 rides on this. I've ridden this coaster more than any other in the world. And as of right now, of the almost 40 roller coasters I've ridden, this is still my favorite in the world, and is definitely the best at Six Flags Great America.